Thank you. You look great too.
Welcome, Sam Jacobs, to Recruiter Radio. Thanks for being with us this morning.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now, everyone knows Sam Jacobs is the founder of the Revenue Collective. Sam, for those who might not know, tell us a little bit about what the Revenue Collective is and why you founded it back in 2013, unofficially, officially in 2016. Did I get those dates right?
You absolutely did. So thank you for doing that research, Kyle. Revenue Collective is a global community for customer-facing executives, primarily at high-growth companies, but not exclusively at high-growth companies. So people all over the world are coming together through Revenue Collective. The purpose of why they join is what we call career enablement. And what that means is we exist to support and serve the achievement of career objectives and goals for our members, our individual members. And we do that in essentially three ways. We first help them be amazing at their job. So one of the CEOs, where a Revenue Collective member works as Chief Revenue Officer, said, Revenue Collective is like an Iron Man suit for my revenue leadership. And I think that's a nice...
An Iron Man suit for my revenue leadership. That's
exactly
catchy. That's
it's pretty good.
That's good marketing.
So one way, and I can talk about how, but at a high level, we're helping you get better at your job in real time, moment to moment, so that when you encounter new challenges, obstacles, hurdles, you have a trusted community of peers that you can get insights from. The world is changing so quickly that there's no textbook that you can read to tell you how to be a chief marketing officer or a chief revenue officer or sales officer or customer officer in the year 2020. Everything is changing, as we all know, right? What's the word we use for 2020? Unprecedented. And so in these unprecedented times, how do you go to market in the right way using all of the latest technology, the latest tools? You need a community of other people that are trying to do the same thing so that you can share learnings and best practices in real time. So that's one big pillar of value, I suppose. The second is that the average tenure of an executive at a high growth company is 17 months, and that was before COVID. So who knows what it is now? We haven't refreshed the research, but I know that 10 to 15% of our community was out of work over the course of March, April, and May. So many people are impacted. If that's going to be true, and we're in a world, we're not in the 50s or the 60s. There's no pensions for any of these executives. There's tremendous amount of career volatility, and they're constantly on the line to hit a number and to achieve a certain objective, and they're constantly being evaluated. And further, there's an idea, a meme, a belief within the high growth community, private equity and venture capital backed companies typically, that there is a person appropriate for each stage of growth. And so definitionally, that means that they are looking to fire you or replace you as you outlive your utility in whatever stage you are hired into. So in that reality, there needs to be an ever-present community to help people find their next job. And there needs to be a way that this community can partner with all of the aforementioned, the venture capitalists, the private equity investors, and even executive recruiters, and do it in an easy way, to do it in a way where we're not looking for any kind of cut, we're not looking for any sliver of their economics, but actually we can take care of our own economics through our business model. And that enables us to partner and help people find jobs anywhere they want in the world. And because we're a global community, there has never been a more important time on the job search perspective to be a member of a community like Revenue Collective, if not Revenue Collective. Why? Because now the labor market is truly global. And I can tell you both from personal experience and from working with our members that you can get a job in many more places than you ever have been able to before because of the possibility to work from home and remote work. Yeah. And so we help people find a job. And then finally, the last piece is through education, through research and data, through information, we help provide transparency on benchmarking data related to compensation to increase people's leverage and increase their power and empowerment, and to help them negotiate most effectively for that job so that they can be best protected and best positioned for themselves, again, in light of the fact that the labor market has never seen such volatility. And because nobody else is looking out for our members, we want to make sure that there is a community that is looking out for our members and that provides them with the resources so that they know that whoever they are, whatever they look like, wherever they're from, they are getting market compensation for their services, and they have the best, latest, most up-to-date information on what to negotiate for and how to negotiate so that they can achieve their career goals. So a bit long-winded, but the summary is get better at your job, find a job, and negotiate more effectively for that job.
Yeah, well, three vital resources that you provide, and your membership is growing exponentially. You've got a truly global membership now, and to your point, you can work from anywhere. As long as your internet connection is strong, you could be on a virtual beach or on a real beach, depending on where you're located. So that's very exciting as we come out of COVID. One of the big changes is the work from home. I want to go back to something you said earlier. Really intrigues me about the mentality and the mindset that's best suited for each stage of growth. And if I understood you correctly, people who do well in the very earliest stages of growth are not necessarily the best for later stages of growth. Did I understand that? Is that
You understood that is a belief. I do not actually
okay?
share that belief.
Right.
I think we have over-indexed on that idea.
Mm.
But yes, there's a belief that there are different people more appropriate for different stages of growth and that people should be swapped out as you exit one stage and enter the new stage.
And that's something I have encountered. And to put that in perspective, the growth stage of the company defines who might be a fit. But from your personal experience, you don't feel that's necessarily appropriate. People can adapt to different stages of growth, and they may be over measuring what's actually happening as they grow.
I think that, yes, I don't think, listen, there's no exclusive rule and there are exceptions to every rule. But I think generally great humans and great executives, one of their skills is intellectual curiosity and a focus on self-improvement and a focus on the ability to learn and absorb new information. And I think most go-to-market motions, we're not talking about the theory of relativity or, the Higgs boson particle. We're talking about understandable things that just require experience. They just require that you've, quote unquote, seen the movie a few times. And I think with resources like Revenue Collective, you can take a shortcut and you can ask people who have seen the movie, and then you can build a channel, revenue model. You can work with value-added resellers. You can build a demand generation engine, even though you've never done it before. If you have the capacity to learn and you have the ability to ask people that have done it before, then yeah, I think you can. Now, there are certain people that, to your point, Kyle, that there are certain traits that are going to be better for earlier versus later. I will say that, though. And then we can talk about those if you want.
Well, that's exactly what I did want to talk about, because what I've seen is that two things happen. When a company reaches a certain stage, the leaders who prefer to be early stage, high growth, thrive on the chaos, as we like to say, that high tolerance for ambiguity is one of my favorites. They tend to leave of their own volition. So that does happen voluntarily. But I think we can both agree that companies imposing that departure may be misreading the potential for these individuals to adapt. Or is that case by case, exceptions to prove the rule? I may have convoluted myself into a circular argument, but are we on the same track that there's a certain type of person who thrives in the early stage and would find a bigger company once they settle into a routine? They would find it really boring.
I think that's not completely inaccurate. So again, I think there's lots of people whose ambition is so large that they just want to be the person that can be the chief revenue officer of a $250 million revenue company in the same way they could be the chief revenue officer of a $5 million revenue company. And there are lots and lots of examples. And there's a woman, Elisa Fink, who was the chief marketing officer, I believe, of Tableau. And, she was their first marketing hire. And Travis Bryant, who left as global SVP of sales for Optimizely and passed 100 million, and he works at Redpoint Ventures now. He's a friend of mine. He started, very, very early. So I do think that there are many, many people. I think I'm one of those people, frankly. But what are the differences? I think to your point, Kyle, there are differences. What's true? What is true to your point about the early stages, right? Is that everything you just said? You need to thrive on ambiguity. You need to like the act of getting the engine going. And you need to like mixing very actively throughout the day, tactical and strategic, right? You need to like the act of, I'm going to fill out that Google spreadsheet. I can't hire somebody to fill out that Google spreadsheet. I'm going to call the customer. I don't have a team of 20 people to call the customer.
Right.
I think the biggest difference that I've noticed, and this is true in myself as well. So even though I like to think of myself as the person that can be the $100 million CRO, I'm not sure that I am. So I'm contradicting what I just said, but here's the difference. The difference is that at bigger companies, you must like the process of making decisions, the process of deliberation and consensus building. You must enjoy that. And many people do not, right? Many early stage people, they like to move as, Zuck, fancifully quoted, move fast and break things. Early stage executives, they get a thrill from the act of making a decision and seeing it implemented in lightning speed. And large company executives do not require that level of kind of instant gratification and endorphin rush. And they actually like the process of working with a large group of people over sometimes many months to align around a bigger, larger objective. So if you're one of those people that's in a meeting and you're like, why the F are we still talking about this? And why do we need to ask Joe, Sally, and Frank all their opinions? You may not do so well in a large company. And there are people that do like that. There are people that like meetings. There are people that really, really thrive on harmonious interpersonal relationships and love the act of bringing a company along for a big decision, even if that decision is a watered down version of their original idea.
Yeah. Well, we're all on a spectrum of creative versus orderly, I guess, chaos versus order. There's different personality types that like different stages of things. And I think it's been pretty much proven that the entrepreneurs are typically on the spectrum of creative openness, that psychologically they just thrive in those environments. And when you put them in a situation where there's a lot of order, structure, and process, they just hate it and they quit. And that's been shown to happen consistently. So, is it as simple as the types of people who love being an entrepreneur, love being an early stage, they just get to a point where it gets too big? And does the Revenue Collective sort of identify those traits and help people understand, maybe through coaching, how to adapt to a larger environment to thrive in that?
Yeah, I mean, again, like it's more Revenue Collective is for to help you figure out wherever you want to go. And I'll say two things. The first thing is that it's true that entrepreneurial mindset, right? The people that thrive on chaos. It's true that as the company grows, they often leave either of their own accord or somebody asking them to.
Right.
And there's actually not a problem with that from my perspective. The problem is the deal. The problem is the compensation. The compensation typically is structured in such a way that to really make money, you need to be there for 4 years, right? Because most options are vesting over a 4-year period. Most of the time the money is made and the management retention bonuses and the cash distributions, they happen later on, right? They don't happen oftentimes at the beginning. That's a problem because there's tremendous value that's created at the beginning. So my point isn't that everybody needs to work from 0 in revenue to 100 million in order to be their best selves. If they want to be that kind of person that thrives on chaos and helps take a company to 10 million, by the way, 0 to 10 million is, every stage is critical, but 0 to 10 million, you have de-risked the business, right? You are moving from a point when it is not even sure whether the thing is a thing. At 10 million in revenue, the thing is a thing. We don't know if it's going to be an IPO thing, but we know it's a thing. And we know it's going to be able to hire people, and we know there's a market for it. And so the amount of risk that is removed from that growth is disproportionate to the way that early stage revenue executives, and really all executives, are paid. And so one thing that Revenue Collective is trying to do is say, okay, that's okay. If we're only going to work somewhere for a year and a half, that might be the right time. There's no malice here. We're not out to get anybody, but in that case, our compensation needs to be aligned to that reality. And the traditional compensation as structured does not address that reality, in my opinion. So let's think about new creative ways of meeting both of our goals. My goal as an operator being I'm trying to create wealth, and I'm trying to have the value that I create be more correspondent to the money that I get paid. And you as the founder and the investors, you're trying to make sure that you don't give away the farm and that it's proportionate as well, and that you feel good actually about bringing people in at different stages. And maybe that's the right decision. So thing number one is it could be the right outcome for people to work places for a year and a half and only take companies through one particular phase. I just want to make sure that they get paid the right way in that case. And we can talk about that. The second point I would make, however, is that there are a number of people who set their sights higher and they want to be the person, the woman or the man that can help the company grow to 100 million or $1 billion in recurring revenue. And for those people, we want to make sure that they have that opportunity in a way that they didn't before, and that they have a credible presentation and argument to make to company management and to the investors to say, listen, I know that you're used to swapping people out. You know, there's the 0 to 10 person and the 10 to 30 person and the 30 to 100 person. I can be all three of those things because I have access to an unprecedented set of resources that helps me gain that experience in a shorter amount of time, access leading industry experts in real time, and just make sure that at every point in this journey, in this labyrinth that we're all navigating, that I am best positioned because I've got my Iron Man suit on and I'm making sure that I have the answers to the quiz beforehand.
Yeah. Well, that's another good way of putting it. You have the answers to the quiz. You've got an open book test here now.
Exactly.
So really, we're looking at the breakdown of barriers based on location. So that's been established. But now we're also breaking down the segmented barriers that did exist and were regimented. As an executive recruiter who works with the Revenue Collective candidates, people categorize themselves to me, and they'll say, "I'm the 0 to 10 guy." Or I'm more the 10 to 30 guy. And guy is a false generic, meaning
person.
And that seems to be on the point of breaking down as well, if I hear you correctly. Like that, those segments don't need to be as rigid, and it's because of the value of the information that people have access to within the Revenue Collective, so that if somebody makes that transition, they can say, "Hey, I've always been the 0 to 10 person. Now I'm going to try to be the 10 to 30, and at these dinners, these networking events, or even offline, they can get that information and make that transition a lot easier."
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, again, there's a leap of faith that has to happen from management. But at the same time, again, to the point of the pace of change and the rate of change, there is no world's leading CRO, CMO, CCO on how to run a sales team during a global pandemic.
No.
Right? That person does not exist.
No.
So you don't have the choice of having the 10 to 30 woman who's led through the bubonic plague and still managed to achieve, 20% year-on-year ARR growth. That's not a thing that exists. So there's going to have to be some kind of real-time resource to help people level up as they grow. And we think that the best, I worked at a company called Gerson Lemon Group, and we steal a lot of ideas from my early experience there. And the central theme of GLG was always, I don't want to read the book. I want to talk to the person that wrote the book. And Revenue Collective is a mechanism to always be talking to the people that will write the book.
And that's to the point of podcasts. Why podcasts? Everybody's doing podcasts. I just started to keep myself, amused during the shutdown. But everybody's getting their news from podcasts these days. Why read the book when you can, talk to the person in a long form interview? It's 3 hours, interviews with the person who wrote the book. Do you have plans for incorporating? I know you have your own podcast that you host as well, The Sales Hacker. Do you have plans for incorporating these ideas and generating that information through podcasts, through your own podcast or others? And is that something that you're...
we've launched a Revenue Collective podcast. It comes out on Mondays.
Does it?
Yeah. And And that's a way for non-Revenue Collective members, frankly, to hear about what we're talking about inside the Revenue Collective. And then the goal is to have it be daily. I'm a big fan of the podcast medium.
Yeah.
As ubiquitous as it is, as the fact that everybody has a podcast, I recognize all of that. But as I've said in the past, there's something very, very special about this particular medium. And it's because of headphones. It's because when you're listening to a podcast on your headphones, there's an intimacy there. Someone is whispering in your ear, literally. They are speaking in your ear. And there's not a lot of content, media channels where you can be that close to somebody that you do not know and share those experiences, whether it's on a run or driving around or whatever it may be. So yes, we've got a podcast. We do public events. We're doing 25 to 30 digital events every week at this point. We're really trying, my vision is, one of the ideas is to create a platform for our members to create content and to showcase that content, frankly, not too dissimilar from LinkedIn, to be honest, but just in a more curated, kind of cordoned off way, so that more and more people can build their brand in an interesting, relevant way. And we can find people however they choose to consume it. We don't have a YouTube channel yet, but I guess that's the last stone to unturned.
There you go. There you go. Well, we don't have 3 hours booked. We're coming up to the top of the hour. Let me leave you with a question around recruiting partnerships. What advice or suggestions would you give to a recruiter who is partnering with your group, with your membership, with your very special group of people, in terms of how they interact, how they engage, how to make best use of the Revenue Collective from a recruiting perspective?
Well, that's a great question. I think it's helpful in these last few minutes for me to just articulate our business model, because it's not the same as most communities. Our business model is not 100% driven by membership dues, but is about 90% driven by membership dues. And 10% of our revenue is sponsor revenue that is transparent to the member. There's no kickbacks. There's no cuts. We are not looking for any economics. And I think most people, particularly in kind of service businesses like recruiting, are used to every person they partner with has their hand in their pocket. We don't have our hand in your pocket, and we have no interest in doing that. So what that means is that it's very easy and powerful to partner with us, because we want our partners to make money. And we exist as a platform to help people achieve their career goals. And we exist as a platform to help our partners make money too. And so first things first is just understand that there's no deal that needs to be cut. We're not asking for 10% or anything like that. All of our relationships with recruiters are let 1,000 flowers bloom. We view us working with recruiters as a benefit to our members. So they pay us. We do get paid by them renewing their membership every month. So that's thing number one. And as a consequence, thing number two is don't hesitate, build the relationship. I would say that a lot of people, you do have to understand that there's a level of information that you can choose to disclose. You don't have to disclose the company name. If you're working on a very confidential search, you can just give us a few keywords. It's good these days to let us know if there's an opportunity for the leader, for whomever you're trying to hire, to work remote, obviously, because that's a little piece of data. We've got, I cannot tell you, for anybody listening out there, the world is global. There are amazing leaders in cities that you are not currently recruiting from. And if you mandate that this person has to be, I don't even know why you would mandate that, because we're not allowed to meet in person right now. So at least for the next year, until we have a vaccine, you should at least be open to people in the same time zone, even if they're not in the same city. But there are incredible leaders all over the world. So let us know if they can work remote, and you can share as little or as much information as possible. And I would communicate that to your clients, who are the hiring companies, and say, listen, it's not about a secret search, that idea that like you're going to secretly interview 10 of the very best people and nobody's ever going to know about it. That idea is more difficult than ever to achieve, given these interconnected communities. So I would just be a little bit more understanding of the world that we live in, that people are talking, and you're not going to control it, unfortunately, because the membership, I've been in a situation where the recruiter said, please don't post this. but if you have 5 of the best people you know, can you let me know? And my answer is I don't have time to do that, and I'm not going to do that. But if you don't want to post it, I won't post it. I can either post it or not post it.
Yeah.
What do you know? Lo and behold, the next week, the same search was listed in our weekly jobs because a different member had posted it. So it's really not up to me at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, as we get global, the world gets smaller.
Exactly.
The community is very small. The group of people who thrive in this chaos is a small community, and they all know each other, and you're bringing them together and breaking down barriers for them. So it's definitely become a much more network society that we live in, for sure. Well, Sam, I really appreciate the time. I want to thank you for sharing that message. It is certainly a hopeful one, an optimistic one. What are you looking forward to, as we go into the second half of 2020?
Well, in our last minute or two together, Kyle, I will say I'm looking forward to a vaccine to coronavirus. I am hopeful that some of the governors and some of the people in my country, the United States, have a better appreciation for science and for fact, and can just start wearing masks and not contaminating each other, so that we can move past this as quickly as possible from an economic perspective. And I'm also just hopeful that there are going to be real, long-term, permanent, positive changes that come from this terrible epidemic and pandemic. And I'm excited about that. I'm excited about a newly liberated world where more people can work from home, and where more global candidates, where more people are candidates for different great jobs, and the labor market is truly globalized. And I'm frankly encouraged by some of the protest movements that have been happening, and a world where diversity is more celebrated than ever and equality is more championed than ever. And then finally, I don't know if I'm hopeful that our carbon emissions as a planet have been reduced during all of this. And maybe we figure out that it's okay to not be on a plane all the time, and that we're helping the environment if we just sit around and tend to our animals and care for our loved ones. So I'm optimistic about a lot of different things, but first and foremost, let's find a vaccine to this thing.
Amen, brother. Amen. A beautiful message. Thanks for sharing it, and keep up all the great work. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. Thanks so much, Sam.
Thanks for having me on the show, Kyle.
Talk again soon.